So, you're American.
We don't want you here. Surprised? Don't be. As popular as Americans are globally, there are some places you shouldn't visit if you are a US citizen. It's not all sunshine and rainbows everywhere, and for various reasons, some countries have a bit of chilly air when it comes to rolling out the red carpet for folks from the USA.
So we would like it if you can get us 5,000 likes on this video even as we talk about the 10 countries where Americans are not welcome in 2024. Number 10, Myanmar.
Starting with Myanmar, as of 2024, this Southeast Asian nation has a populace of just under 55 million souls. Now, Myanmar isn't exactly handing out welcome drinks to Americans, and there's a bit of history and current events to blame for that. Following the military coup in February 2021, the country has been in a state of turmoil, with civil unrest and armed conflict becoming part of daily life. For Americans thinking of visiting, it's a maze of visa applications and warnings. The US government advises against travel to Burma due to these ongoing issues, including arbitrary enforcement of local laws and limited healthcare resources. Imagine needing a visa that takes a minimum of 3 working days to process, only to land in a place where you're advised not to travel.
Plus, there's the whole deal with the US imposing sanctions on Myanmar, which doesn't exactly make American tourists popular guests at the Myanmar party. Number 9, Yemen.
Now let's hop over to Yemen, a country with a population estimated to be around 30 million. Yemen is another spot where Americans might find the welcome mat a bit dusty. The country has been embroiled in a devastating conflict since 2015, leading to a massive humanitarian crisis. For Americans, the idea of visiting Yemen is met with stern warnings about civil unrest, terrorism, kidnapping, and armed conflict. The US State Department couldn't be clearer with its "do not travel" advisory. Getting a visa as an American?
Good luck.
Yemen's strict visa policies, coupled with the country's instability, make it nearly impossible for casual tourism. And even if you did manage to get in, the hostility towards Americans due to perceived involvement in the conflict and drone strikes makes it a less than ideal vacation spot. If you're enjoying the content so far, don't forget to smash that like button, thumbs up, and hit the subscribe button bell to join our community. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the latest updates, interesting facts, and exciting adventures we share. And if you really love what we do, consider clicking that notification bellhop bell so you're the first to know when we upload new videos. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to the video.
Number 8, Somalia.
Next up is Somalia, a country with a population of about 15 million people.
Now here's where things get a bit dicey for Americans.
The genesis of the frosty reception can be traced back to various factors, including political instability and security concerns. In May 2022, President Joe Biden approved the redeployment of US soldiers to combat the al-Shabaab insurgents, a move that, while strategic from a defense standpoint, doesn't exactly make American tourists the most popular guests at the party. The visa process is very stringent. Think of it as trying to thread a needle while riding a roller coaster.
Possible, but not without its challenges.
Hostilities can range from bureaucratic red tape designed to make your stay less than pleasant to outright security risks to your life. It's a tough scene, especially considering the humanitarian crisis unfolding there, with millions displaced and struggling for food.
Not exactly the backdrop for a warm welcome. Number 7, Venezuela. Venezuela, home to over 28 million people. The relationship between the US and Venezuela has been, to put it mildly, strained. Economic sanctions, political spats, and a general air of mistrust have made Venezuela a challenging destination for Americans. As of August 2023, the economic situation has driven over 7.7 million people to leave the country, proof of the dire circumstances many Venezuelans face. For Americans looking to visit, the visa process is a puzzle of its own. It's not just about filling out forms, it's about navigating an inherently skeptical system, if not outright hostile towards Americans. Once inside, the high cost of living and high tension can make day-to-day interactions feel like walking on eggshells. And with approximately 23,000 US citizens living in Venezuela, mostly in the Caracas area, the community is there, but so is the feeling of being unwelcome guests in a house divided by politics and economic hardship. Number 6. Libya. Libya is a country that's been through more plot twists than a season of Game of Thrones.
As of 2024, Libya boasts a population of about 7 million people.
Now, why might an American passport not be the golden ticket here?
Well, it's a cocktail of factors. The U.S. Department of State currently has a "do not travel" advisory for Libya due to a variety of dangers, including crime, terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, and armed conflict.
But let's get into the nitty-gritty. The relationship between the U.S. and Libya has been a roller coaster, especially after the 2012 attack on the U.S. mission in Benghazi. This event was a turning point, leading to heightened security concerns and making Libya a tough cookie for American travelers. The visa process is super tough.
Americans looking to explore Libya face stringent visa requirements, and the fact that the Libyan government doesn't allow entry to passports bearing Israeli stamps adds another layer of complexity.
Number 5. Syria.
Syria is a country with a rich culture and history. Sadly, it's been overshadowed by conflict in recent years, with the population grappling with the realities of civil war. Syria is another spot where Americans might find the welcome mat rolled up.
The reasons are similar to Libya but dial up the intensity.
The U.S. has slapped a Level 4 travel advisory on Syria, citing risks of terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, and armed conflict. The Syrian government's stance towards Americans is hostile, thanks to a complicated geopolitical chess game involving sanctions, military actions, and diplomatic standoffs. The visa process for Americans wanting to step into Syria is like finding a needle in a haystack. The hoops and hurdles in the application process reflect the strained relations between the two countries. And if you somehow manage to get in, the environment can be less than welcoming due to the ongoing conflict and general suspicion towards foreigners, particularly Americans.
This is because of the US's involvement in regional politics over there. Number 4. Afghanistan.
When we talk about countries where Americans might not roll out the welcome mat, Afghanistan tops many lists, and for so many reasons. With a population of about 38 million, this country has been a focal point of geopolitical tensions for decades.
Now, why might an American get the cold shoulder in Afghanistan?
For starters, the U.S. Department of State currently recommends that U.S. citizens do not travel to Afghanistan due to terrorism, the risk of wrongful detention, kidnapping, and crime. It's like the country is saying, visit at your own risk, but with a tone that strongly suggests, please don't. The advisory isn't just for show. It's backed by a grim reality where multiple terrorist groups are active, and Americans are prime targets for kidnapping and wrongful detentions. Imagine planning a trip only to find out you're on the most wanted list for a group you've never even heard of. The visa process for Americans wanting to enter Afghanistan is, to put it mildly, daunting. While U.S. citizens must have a valid passport and Afghan visa to enter and exit, those arriving without a valid visa face deportation or confiscation of their passport and heavy fines. It's like the country's way of saying, forget something?
Too bad.
And if you thought getting a visa on arrival might be your backdoor entry, think again. That process involves letters from the Ministry of Tourism or the Ministry of Information and Culture, and tourist visas are usually single entry, valid for 3 months, with a 1-month authorized stay. But let's not paint an entirely bleak picture. The relationship between Afghanistan and the United States has layers, like an onion. Peel back the layers, and you'll find a history of diplomatic ties dating back to 1935, with moments of cooperation and mutual support. However, the overarching narrative, especially post-2001 following the U.S. invasion to house the Taliban and combat al-Qaeda, has been one of tension and conflict. This military involvement, aimed at self-defense after the September 11th attacks, marked a significant turning point, setting the stage for the current advisories against travel.
Number 3. Iraq.
Iraq, with a population hovering around 40 million souls, has had a tumultuous relationship with the United States, to say the least. It all began with the 2003 US-led invasion under the pretext of weapons of mass destruction. Since then, the narrative between the two nations has been complicated. Why aren't Americans welcome?
First off, the visa process.
It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Americans can indeed get visas on arrival at airports, but to get an exit stamp in your passport can be super tricky. The visa application itself is a marathon, not a sprint. It normally takes around 12 working days to process, requiring a valid passport. It's less, "Welcome to Iraq," and more, "Prove why we should let you in." But it's not just the paperwork that can make Americans feel unwelcome. The security situation is like walking on a tightrope over a canyon. With reports of government officials employing torture and other inhumane treatments, and the presence of various armed groups, it's a stark reminder that the country is still grappling with stability.
Number 2. Iran.
Iran, with a population hovering around 83 million souls, is a land of ancient history, breathtaking landscapes, and, well, complicated relations with the United States. The genesis of the frosty reception Americans might encounter dates back to the 1979 Iran hostage crisis. Back then, a group of Iranian students took over the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, leading to a 444-day standoff.
Fast forward to today, and the situation hasn't thawed much.
The U.S. State Department slaps a Level 4 travel advisory on Iran, which is basically their way of saying, think twice before packing your bags. The U.S. government and Iran's relationship is like a cat-and-mouse game, riddled with political and military tensions. So, why might Americans not get the warmest reception?
First off, the visa process.
Iran's government views the United States with suspicion, largely due to ongoing sanctions, diplomatic tensions, and contrasting political ideologies. Americans looking to visit Iran will find the visa process rigorous. The process involves a maze of paperwork and a long wait. And if you get the golden ticket, the restrictions don't end at the airport. Your movements are closely monitored, and the government keeps a tight rein on where you can go and who you can interact with. So why the chilly welcome? Well, it isn't just about history. It's about the current geopolitical chess game. The US and Iran have had a roller coaster of diplomatic spats, sanctions, and occasional threats of military action. So, if you're an American, getting a visa to Iran is like threading a needle in a haystack.
The visa process can be grueling, with multiple checks and often a no-go stamp at the end.
And if you do manage to get in, expect your every move to be watched, adding a layer of unease to your visit.
Number 1. North Korea.
Topping our list is the enigmatic, isolated nation of North Korea. With a population estimated to be around 25 million, North Korea is known for its tight control over its borders and its citizens. The U.S. State Department has issued a Level 4 travel advisory, explicitly advising Americans not to travel to North Korea due to the serious risk of arrest and long-term detention. Since September 1, 2017, American citizens have been prohibited from using a U.S. passport to travel to North Korea without special validation from the U.S. government. This travel ban is a response to the long history of strained relations between the two countries, dating back to the Korean War. The situation became even more tense following the detainment and tragic death of American student Otto Warmbier in 2017. In North Korea, Americans are often seen not just as tourists but as potential pawns in a larger geopolitical game. The visa process, if one attempts to navigate it, is arduous and fraught with uncertainties.
Even if granted entry, the level of surveillance and restrictions imposed on visitors ensure that any trip to North Korea is far from a typical travel experience.